Gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She comes with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to the Friday edition of the Paranormal Portal. I'm here with you now for 2 straight hours of fun-filled paranormal activity. I'm totally ripping off the movie title there, but what do? I'm trying to get those quick, easy plugs. Special thanks to the Freaky Friday crew, Kevin and Joe. Good to see you guys. Thank you so much. Hope Scotty's getting his feet under him again. It's not the same without old Scott, but still a fantastic show, and always a pleasure to follow you gentlemen. You just redefine what it is to do a show, and I'm doing my best to keep up with the footprints you leave behind, but I'll fill them as well as I can. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Paranormal Portal, our forum for all things paranormal, and throughout the duration of the show tonight, we do have phones available. You can call in and share your very own paranormal encounters or experiences or whatever. I'd love to hear from you, and the number for the Paranormal Portal is 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500. So the number is available if you'd like to call in and be a part of the show. That's awesome. The show is fine in and of itself, but when you guys call in, it's amazing. And it is for me anyway. And I know that, I just got a bunch of feedback from last night. We had a bunch of great call-ins. And people like, yeah, it was a really great call-ins. Those were really cool. It was cool to hear their stories. So you guys bring something new to every show. So please don't be shy. It's just me and a microphone and you and your phone, and we'll just have a discussion. So call in if you'd like. Again, 720-923-0500. However, if you'd rather not call in, it kind of freaks you out and it's just too intimidating. I understand. It's just me, but whatever. I understand. Some people are just not comfortable speaking publicly like this. So you can always email your stories in if you'd rather do it that way. I'm happy to see your stories and to share them on the shows if you feel like you'd like to do that. The email address for the show is paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. Make sure you get the radio in there. So it's paranormalportalradio, all one word, at gmail.com, and that'll get to me. And if you got a bunch of stories and you'd like to share them on our show, or on the podcast especially, I'd love to have you as a guest on the podcast. Those are all pre-recorded, so if you're really nervous, if we screw up, you can always redo it. Now, this is live, so it's a little different. There's not a lot of do-overs on live, so it is the pressure, I think, would be a little bit higher calling into the live show than it would to do a podcast. But certainly both options are available, or all three options. Either you call in, you email in, or you're a guest on the podcast. But whatever avenue you choose, I would be honored to have you. So please feel free. It'd be great. Happy Friday to you, Cha-Cha, on the YouTube chat. That's a whole lot of horns. I'm not going to go there. It's one of those things. It came out of my mouth and then it just sounded wrong. So I'm just going to leave it lay there. So, But anyway, welcome everybody to the Friday edition of the show. It's just me, myself, and I here with you guys tonight. So, but tomorrow, please check out the show. Tomorrow night, again, same time, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Don and I will be welcoming for the very first time ever Mr. Kev Baker, who will be joining us here on the show. It should be a great time, a great discussion. Kev has been really wonderful and amazing in helping to promote the portal, and I couldn't be more thrilled to have him on as a guest to talk to Kev, to kind of reverse the whole thing. He's used to asking the questions, but we're going to make him answer a few tomorrow. So we'll get a little eye into the mind of the Kev Baker. And so that'll be tomorrow night. So don't miss that show. But anyway, I got some good stuff pulled up for you guys tonight. I'll do my best to keep you entertained. That's what I do. Hopefully I succeed. But it's great to see all you guys piling into the YouTube chat. That's wonderful. And to all of you in the TFR chat, there's two ways that you can be in the chat communities. If you're not in either of them currently, if you're listening on TFR Live, or if you're on iHeart, TuneIn and TalkStream Live, or iHeart, TuneIn and TalkStream Live. Yeah, I covered them all. You can certainly head over to the tfrlive.com/chat and enter with a username and password, and you can get yourself into the chat community there. Or we are also streaming live on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/paranormal portal. So we're trying to take over the world one station at a time. So hopefully you guys will get involved, because the shows are always better with your involvement. I got a message here. Oh, okay. Very cool. All right. So tonight, Living the Paranormal, I called tonight's episode. And, the idea with that is that there's nothing normal about experiencing paranormal, which hence the name paranormal, which just means above normal or not normal, or however you want to spin it. And of course it's incredibly nerve-wracking for people that are going through stuff. I've talked with lots of listeners who have gotten in contact with me and wanted to discuss their situations, and I love people to be on the show, but I'm also here if people are going through something really scary and tough. And it's just really it really revamps their whole lives. You think about our homes. Our homes are like they're the safe place. They're the place where we take shelter from the rest of our lives, and we shut everything off when we're in our home. That's our safe spot. And of course, when you're home is where, you're encountering something of a spiritual nature, or, for those people that are dealing with cryptid things, or UFO things, it's like home no longer is that safe spot. And it's really, really rough for those people that are experiencing those things. So, it just always strikes me with, I've grown up with lots of different activity myself, but none of it has really been overly terrifying. I mean, it's been significant. I've witnessed some very significant events, but none of it has been terrifying. And my heart really goes out to those people that are dealing with really scary stuff. But, we're just kind of going through the paranormal life, I guess, here on the portal. And we discuss it all the time because that's the format for the show, obviously. But we're going to discuss lots of different types of paranormal activities tonight. And again, we'll see what you guys think, but hopefully it's entertaining. The first ones I wanted to discuss tonight are, I guess I should stop at the hot sheets first. That's kind of the usual 2-hour show thing. And the hot sheets are my reference to a site called singularfordian.com. And it's a site that's owned and operated by the Whalens, husband and wife team, and they did an excellent job, just a really excellent job. And I love checking out their stories. They do a really thorough job reporting all these things. But let me open up their site and see what's on the hot sheets tonight, because it's always a good place to start. Hold on a sec. Had to clear the pipes because we're going to do some reading here. So This is kind of a crazy one. Wow. This headline here, ladies and gentlemen, is again from the singular40n.com. Singular as in SINGULAR and then 4TN FORTEAN.com. And the headline is Spanish man possessed by the devil crashes car into church in search of safety. Oh man, there's even an image. Let's go through this one. I'm going to put it up on screen so those of you that are on YouTube can actually see the image. I mean, it's just a car that looks like it's parked in a church. I'm not sure if this is a staged photo or what, but it looks kind of good. So it says Spanish motorist who claimed he was possessed by the devil was taken to the hospital earlier this month following an incident in which he crashed his Jeep through the doors of San Juan Evangelista Church in Toledo, Spain. The man was spotted in the early hours of January 8th trying to drive through the church's front door but wouldn't break through at first, said Mariano Perea, a spokesman for the local police. He was confronted by a woman who came to check on him, suspecting he'd had an accident, but she was scared away when he rolled down the window and began shouting at her. The man continuously rammed his vehicle into the church's door until it finally gave away. While the woman called for emergency services. He was able to drive through the church to its altar, smashing aside the pews in his way, and civil guard agents later found the man visibly disturbed next to the altar where he told them it was the only place he believed he would be safe. Wow, that is intense. The man sustained several injuries as a result of the crash and was taken to Virgen de la Salud de Toledo Hospital for observation. No one else was reported injured during the incident, and Spanish media sources are reporting that it's possible the man could have suffered a psychotic break, perhaps induced by drugs or alcohol. The man has not been named, although it was reported that he owns a shop which sells cannabis-related products near the church. Uh-oh. According to local authorities, the case is currently under investigation, and the man may be released at a later date. That's pretty tough. I don't know what the relevance of including the cannabis reference was. It's I don't know. I guess to each their own. Some people may believe that there's a correlation between that and having issues with spirits, but I don't know. I mean, to each his own. I guess I can't really wager a guess on whether you should or shouldn't. It's up to you what you want to believe, but it's got to be pretty bad if you're willing to ram your car. And who built those doors? My God, that's amazing. I wonder if they're really old, those really old, thick, like oak doors that are like, literally like 6 inches thick. Those really, really old kind of doors. But the guy broke in there because he felt like he was possessed. Now, I do believe that this stuff happens. That of course people get possessed, and they're dealing with something that defies our modern understandings. But it's also possible that he did have a psychotic break. But that's kind of the scary part. I think is trying to figure out which is which, because I think that there are people in asylums who may be just being relentlessly tormented to the point of breaking their psyche and breaking their grip on reality, just because these spirits are so relentless. But, they would be normal or fine if it weren't for that onslaught. And then, what do they get? They get medicated and thrown into a cell for, whatever purpose or point. And I understand people are, if they're off balance, they're dangerous. And that's, obviously, this guy was ramming his car into a church to try to get away from the being possessed, but that's still pretty bizarre. So that's number one on the hot sheets tonight, ladies and gentlemen. There's never a dull moment out there. You got to be pretty desperate. I mean, was it just? I mean, I suppose it was locked up, huh? That is intense, huh? All right. So the next one then is. This is kind of curious. This one's called, the title is Witness Reports Being Followed by a Humanoid Solid Shadow Figure in Chicago. Again, with Chicago, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not familiar with the show very much, like you just happened onto it, I'm here to tell you that Chicago is just jumping off crazy over there. And I'm not putting down Chicago, but I mean, they've got dozens and dozens of sightings in recent history, and extended history of Mothman type people over there. And I had no idea that the phenomena of Mothman was so widespread. I was familiar with, of course, the Point Pleasant experience of the Mothman over there, and of course, which spawned the Mothman. Was it Mothman? The movie that had to do with the Mothman prophecies or something like that. That was pretty popular, and there's a lot of people that are very interested in that. However, I didn't know that people have reported seeing these type of figures in such a wide area. Now, I am only aware of like Point Pleasant and Chicago, but I'm sure there's more and has been more. But it makes me wonder what the hell's going on in Chicago, because they've got like weekly almost sightings coming out of there of these winged beings or something of that nature, and it's very concerning. So, are these, now what's the shadow figure? Is that one of these Mothmen that just didn't get exposed by the light, or is it a spiritual being? I don't know. So let's read this one and see what the hell's going on. That's crazy. Excuse me. All right, so let's pull this one over. It says the Singular Fortean Society was contacted recently by a witness who said that she was out walking her roommate's dog just before midnight on January 9th. So that's like this year. When she noticed a tall, thin figure shuffling towards her. The witness, who asked that she be referred to only as Kel in this article, was instantly unnerved by her experience, which she described to investigator Tobias Wayland in a series of email correspondence. She says, my roommate got a dog and I was helping by taking him out to go to the bathroom in the Albany Park neighborhood in Chicago. And I was going to go for a long walk because the dog was restless. And as I started to walk down the sidewalk, I looked down the sidewalk ahead of me and I saw a very tall, skinny, all black figure about 7 to 8 feet tall, and it was shuffling towards me very slowly. Jesus, that's so creepy. I stopped and stared, trying to convince myself it was a person, but I couldn't make out any arms, or if it's as if it had long arms being tucked behind itself, and I couldn't make out a round head shape either. And I instantly got scared. I didn't have a good feeling at all. I got creeped out and fled back to the apartment, looking over my shoulder, and it was still there. The initial email read, I just wanted to tell someone. I'm not sure what I just saw, but it was unsettling. Kel reported that she looked at it for about a minute, but couldn't make out what it was, and got a very unsettling feeling about the tall, dark figures shuffling towards her. Yeah, that's just all wrong. That would be horrible. At that point, she pulled the dog along and ran in the direction of her apartment. I glanced over my shoulder 2 times to see if it was still there, and the figure was walking slowly in my direction. Not aggressively coming towards me, but it was facing me, watching me, and I got an eerie feeling that I should get back inside, said Kel. Wayland asked Kel to describe the figure in more detail if possible. It was definitely humanoid, solid shadow figure, she said. It wasn't transparent or anything, just black, skinny, and very tall, and it had weight to it as it shuffled. I could not see eyes or a face, and the head was not even a round silhouette. The head was not a round silhouette. I saw 2 legs, like I could not make out any parts or shoes, or pants or shoes, no clothes, no arms dangling at the torso sides, but there appeared to be something tucked away behind them. Just a dark black solid figure. Now, see, this to me, could it be a one of these Mothmen that just wasn't flying, I mean, I assume they probably land once in a while. We had another story like this just On Wednesday when Don was here, we covered another story where somebody saw something that looked like like a mantis kind of person or something, and just had the real bug eyes, but they were all black. And I thought maybe that would be one of those mothmen that weren't flying around. And now we got another one, and it's kind of shuffling. And I don't know how these things walk when they're not, when they're not flying. But the other thing that's been coming up is that people that are witnessing them in flight are seeing them move in the air, but they're not flapping their wings. It's like they're just kind of gliding, but it's responsive gliding. It's not just gliding to the ground. It's still flying, but the locomotion isn't from a beating of the wings that you'd normally expect. It's just these wings are extended, and these things are flying around. It's very, very strange. Could it be extraterrestrial? Could it be, some kind of? Well, I mean, is it Lake Michigan that's right over there? So, is there some kind of hotspot going on with extraterrestrial activity? I don't know. It's just very crazy. But it keeps you wondering. I don't pretend to know for sure what's going on there, but it's there's all kinds of them. It said uh, she went on to say she had experienced a couple of paranormal events in the past and was perhaps sometimes privy to psychic intuitions. She'd never had any experiences with psychically seeing UFOs or otherworldly apparitions, not even ghosts. Definitely felt nuts after seeing this one, though, she said. Almost 3 weeks prior to Kel's sighting, a Chicago couple reported a large, thin man appeared out of Schiller Woods. That's the story that Don and I covered. Whose eyes were huge and they almost looked like praying mantis eyes, just jet black. So is this the same thing? I mean, what the hell's going on over there? Um, these big metropolises, I imagine there's probably all kinds of things going on that's just under the surface, that most people don't see, but very crazy stuff. So are there Mothmen all over the place in Illinois and in the Chicago area? Is there something to do with, the Lake Michigan phenomena that people are talking about? Is it the Lake Michigan Triangle or something like that? Could that be somehow related? Is there perhaps a submerged craft in Lake Michigan? I don't know. It's really, really crazy, though. There's just all kinds of it. And, it's literally, dozen or more recent reports of this. So something is definitely going on, but where are these things coming from? Where are they going? Where do they live? Are they subterranean? Is there some kind of cave systems around over there? And I'm not familiar with Chicago enough to know, but that's really disturbing. Really, really disturbing. So it makes you wonder. We are not alone, ladies and gentlemen. But it is what it is, I guess. We can't do anything about it. They're just out there. But we can talk about it. We can discuss it and see what we think. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think there are these Mothmen out there? Are these strange things? And on Wednesday's show, I brought up that movie, and I think the movie was called Mimic. And I don't know if you guys have seen it or not, but the premise for the movie is that there's this race of giant insects, and they are insects, but they're huge, enormous, and it doesn't really, I don't think, go into the extraterrestrial possibility. Maybe it does. I don't remember. It's been years, but the reason it was called Mimic was because these insects had learned how to, or had evolved, I guess, to mimic a human being. So in a crowd, it would look just like another person standing there, possibly huddled in a coat or something like that. But it was all actually just their exoskeleton or like some form of camouflage that they naturally evolved. And they would prey on people. People would be disappearing all the time. And, sometimes the truth is actually stranger than fiction, ladies and gentlemen. So could there be some form of, subterranean or insect race that can mimic and look similar to human beings and be walking among us? I don't know, but this is obviously 7 or 8 feet tall is absolutely huge. So I don't know how that would work necessarily, but that is pretty intense. This is the kind of stuff that people claim is out there, ladies and gentlemen. And, in doing the Paranormal Portal, I think when I started doing this show, I thought really, I was pretty self assured with the fact that I kind of knew about the paranormal. I kind of knew what was out there and what the claims were. But I got to tell you, as I've gone further and further and further down this rabbit hole, I am dumbfounded with the claims that are out there that people are seeing. And I know that they can't all probably be true. But if even a percentage of them are true, there is something absolutely amazing going on there. Even if 1% of everything I've shared on the show, and I've used that figure before, but if only 1% is true, that is crazy. I think the mantis are ETs, Bam says in the TFR chat. I think so too, because you'd think we'd probably would have known they were here if there's something terrestrial. But then again, there are Bigfoot running around. There are dogmen running around. There are rakes or ghouls, however you want to identify those. And what are the possibilities of things like people generating, by virtue of believing in things, are people generating things? I believe we manifest things. Are people manifesting these things? Is this a manifestation of what would be maybe known as a Slender Man? I don't know. Now, it's all, most of those things are attributed to, it's a Reddit thing or something like that, whatever site that was spawned on. Oh, probably a alien, demon, interdimensional being, all the same phenomena. Yeah, it could be the same. That's true. Shadow people, Bam says. Yeah, that's true as well. Mothman. Yeah, I appreciate you guys' input. I can't normally watch the chat too much, but I just happen to be looking at that TFR chat. I appreciate that, guys. There's the bell. We're going to take a break. Don't go away. We'll be right back with more of the Paranormal Portal. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Second half hour of the Paranormal Portal is now underway. So I'm thrilled you guys are here with me. Thank you so much for spending the evening with me. We are going through the night, just looking, and oh man, there's some huge dips. I don't know if YouTube's kind of flaking out. Is YouTube going okay, guys? Any problems? Just let me know. I see the there's a streaming chart that I can look at as the episode is going, and there's like all these really big peaks and valleys, so I'm not sure what's going on, but let me know if there's no problem. Okay, thanks Aussie, thanks Moog, I appreciate that, guys. Just strange. I'm not sure why that chart is screwing up. I mean, it's like the difference between like 19 people and 60, so very strange, like boom, like that. So I guess the internet might be a little flaky, but as long as you guys aren't seeing anything going sideways, we're in business. All right, so we are going through an evening of lots of paranormal weirdness, uncharted course, but we're going to chart it as well as we can. Let me see, where am I? Got to get my tabs all lined up here. So we're going through, currently we've been checking out a couple stories from the singularfortean.com. It's a site out there, ladies and gentlemen, and I would really encourage you, if you're into the paranormal, if you're into strange stuff, check out the singularfortean.com. It's the hot sheets for the Paranormal Portal. I have no affiliation with the site at all, but I just really think that they do a brilliant job. So I like to try to pass on that kind of stuff to any of the other enthusiasts out there. And I assume if you're watching the show, you must be enthusiastic, or at least an enthusiast. You might not be enthusiastic, but you're here, so you got to be a little interested anyway. Let me close that. Okay, so I thought that was kind of cool. Cool way to start the show. Let's see. I know I've got some emails, but I'm kind of holding off on some of them because I don't want to. These people may actually become guests on the podcast, so I am trying to get some verification from them. But if you want to be a guest on the podcast, you got a lot of paranormal stories or just a few paranormal stories, I'd love to have you on the show. It's been really amazing to have a chance to talk to so many different people that are experiencing so many incredible things. Just meeting everybody that's out there, or some of the people that are out there, to me is really truly a dream come true. And to hear your stories firsthand and to have discussions about them is so powerful. So at least consider it. I'd love to have the chance to have you on the show. So if you're interested in being a guest on the Paranormal Portal podcast, please email paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. But the phone lines are open tonight. As we discussed earlier, again, 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500 is the number to call in if you've got something you'd like to share. I'd love to hear from you. So, all right, so we got some more stories lined up for you guys tonight, and I'm not going to go through the whole night on the Singular Fortean because, it's not the whole show, but it's part of it. Where's the stories that I pulled up? I gotta find them. This one sounds kind of cool. I love these stories. I've covered them several times throughout the history of the Paranormal Portal, and the stories we're going to cover next are some police reports. Well, not reports, but they talk about their most their spookiest encounters with things that were just unexplained. And the reason I like these stories is because police are generally trained observers and are able to witness things and report back in a very generally very factual manner, a recounting of what they've seen. Not that other people aren't as well, but you know what I'm saying. Police generally aren't as likely to be thrown into a serious panic. They're just they've seen a lot of creepy stuff. They've been through a lot of horrible stuff, and so they tend to be really good observers for things like the paranormal. So I always find their stories really interesting, and I think it helps to lend credibility to the field. I think when you have people that have such an official capacity and are willing to step forward and talk about some of their encounters, I think that's cool. All right, so let's get into these. And it says, okay, the first one tonight is, let's see. I want to make sure I start off in the right place. Okay, so the first one, and forgive me if some of these stories you've heard before. Oftentimes I find that the paranormal accounts are repeated all over the place. And so I try to find new material all the time for the shows. But sometimes I come in, we end up rereading some things we've already covered on the show. So please just understand, it's not intentional. Excuse me. So the first one is, on a foggy October night, a veteran county police officer, Nino DiCandia, was patrolling his beat along LeMay Ferry Road when he spotted an elderly couple walking near Park Lawn Cemetery about 3 a.m. I honestly thought it was people visiting a grave and perhaps they had Alzheimer's because there was a nursing home that was really close by, he recalled in a recent interview. The woman was wearing a light-colored dress, the man a brown suit. She grabbed his hand and they walked into the graveyard. Concerned, DiCandia wheeled his patrol car around to search the grounds, but he found no sign of them. And that's when I got the chills, he said. It's not like it was just a glimpse. I watched them for a good 20 to 30 seconds. Maybe they were husband and wife or longtime companions, and she had died first and was there waiting for him and showed him the way. For the next 2 years, DiCandia said he looked to the cemetery while on patrol, but he never saw them again. It's been about 8 years now. DiCandia is a detective, and the image lingers. It's something I won't soon forget, he said. I wasn't tired, and I know what I saw. Behind the badges and guns and vests and batons and tasers and mace that can make police look invincible are people that may be as disturbed by the eerie and macabre as anyone else. Some were brave enough to share their experiences. So, let's see what the next one. In 1970, Dr. Jeff McDonald, an Army officer and practicing physician, this is kind of dark, so forgive me, covered a little one's ears. Jeff McDonald, an Army officer and practicing physician, stabbed and beat his pregnant wife and daughters, who were 2 and 5, to death in their home in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, in what would become a nationally infamous crime. The house was empty for about 5 years, boarded up with electricity off, when a military policeman named Oliver Glenn Boyer, responded about a half a dozen times to reports of strange goings-on there. It wasn't unusual for us to get calls to go to the house because people saw lights on or heard someone talking or screaming inside the residence, said Boyer, now sheriff of Jefferson County. Some of the people making these complaints were high-ranking people that you'd think would be really believable. He said he never experienced the phenomena himself, but that some officers were so unnerved that they refused to search the place. Wow. Those kind of events leave such a footprint. They leave such an impact. And it doesn't surprise me a little bit, even that it would be continuing to linger, and I can only hope that it's residual though, and not, not some innocent souls that are trapped because of their horrible, ending. That's just terrible. Oh. Ugh. All right. Next one. In November 2006, County Officer Sean Haefeli, I think it's Haefeli, was sent to the 200 block of Runyon Avenue to check on a family not heard from for several days. He was shot twice by Tony Lynn, a resident who was killed by a police sniper after a 5-hour standoff. 3 days after that, relatives found the bodies of Lynn's grandmother and 2 of the children, initially overlooked by police in a basement closet. When Haefeli returned to work months later, fellow officers told him of 911 hang-up calls received from the home, even though its phone was disconnected. He felt compelled to look for himself. It looked like a house from Nightmare on Elm Street, Haefeli explained. Windows were boarded up, electricity was shut off, 4 symbolic crosses were painted on the lawn, and then on a later night, flashlight in hand, he worked his way inside and things got weird. He saw a Ouija board with a marker over the letter U. It was like it was pointing at me, he said. The smell of tear gas still hung in the basement. Wine glasses lined a bar. As he approached the closet where the bodies were found, a cold breeze ran past him. It made the hairs on my neck and arms stand up, he remembered. I said what I wanted to say to the victims, and then just got out of there. It felt like something was constricting me. I felt like somebody was there watching me the whole time. Haefeli, now a police officer in Jacksonville, Illinois, said he was told the 911 hang-ups ceased after his visit. Wow. So that was a closure then. That's intense. That's so tragic though. Oh my God. It's so horrible. Here's the next one. About 10 years ago, a couple repeatedly called the police, maybe 10 times, to report hearing someone walking in their home near Imperial. Jefferson County Sheriff's Corporal Rich Rice had been there twice without finding anything and figured the third call would turn out the same. A glass sliding back door was ajar, and a motion sensor had turned on a light. Broken knickknacks were strewn about the living room floor, but Rice couldn't find any footprints in the snow. Then, as he interviewed the couple, floorboards began to creak as if someone were walking across them. I've been a cop for 27 years, and even talking about it now still gives me the chills, Rice said. I'm not a believer in ghosts, and this was enough that it gave me the heebie-jeebies. He added, I'm a Missourian, and you got to show me. Unless I see a goblin walking across the floor, I think things are explainable. And this was not explainable. It was like something out of The Exorcist. Rice said that to the best of his knowledge, new owners reported no such experiences after the couple left. Whether it went with them, I have no idea, he said. That is horrible. Now this, oh my God. I love the topic of ghostly phone calls. I think there's something really poignant and powerful about that, because I think that spirits can interact with electronic devices and electrical things much easier. I think maybe it's by virtue of being energy themselves that it's not hard for them to manipulate these objects. Maybe it's some other reason that they can cause things to change for, like, TVs, radios, lights, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't. But I think the phone calls are incredibly powerful because people have talked to people passed away. They have had conversations with people that passed away. And I think how incredibly powerful is that, and how incredibly bizarre is that, that these conversations could happen and have happened. Now, a lot of times these ghostly phone calls are just They're just calls, and there's nothing there. People answer, and it's just static on the line. They can't make out any voices or anything. It's just this weird, strange static. They hang up, and and that's kind of the end of it, or it repeats, whatever. But every once in a while, there's strange ones that have actually had dialogue, and one that I can remember right offhand, and this is me paraphrasing it, so forgive me, but I found this one incredibly interesting. That there was a teenager, and he and his best friend were just inseparable. They'd grown up together, been the best of buddies. They were just tight, and I think I can't recall if the kid, one of the kids, the friend of this kid, had either just had an accident or took his own life. I don't remember, but the teenager was just inconsolable. He was just having a horrible time dealing with this, and was in just so much pain and sadness and grief, and trying to process this. And I think it was his dad was at the home, and apparently the teenager was not home, but the dad was home and received a phone call from a number, and I don't know if he recognized the number or not. I don't recall anymore, but he answered the phone, and it was the kid's friend who was deceased. He said, "Hey, to say Andy, is Andy there?" "No, I'm sorry, he's not home right now." And he said, "Oh, well, thanks, Mr. So-and-so. Just tell him I called," or something like that. And then it got staticky and ended. And, and again, I'm paraphrasing. It's probably not exactly what happened, but it's very, very close. And I think, how powerful is that he could reach out from beyond the grave and create that connection, that contact. And even though he didn't talk to the son, the teenager, just knowing that he called is such a reassurance, a confirmation that they're okay, And I think that's powerful. That is so very powerful. So, but this one, the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's called a mausoleum calling. So, a mausoleum calling. In the mid-1980s, a county patrolman, Tim Fitch, was in the Afton area when a dispatcher put out a call for a 911 hang-up from inside a mausoleum at the New Mount Sinai Cemetery at about 3 a.m. A fellow officer asked Fitch to meet with him. "Did you hear that call?" she asked him. "I did," he said. "Well, I'm not going in that cemetery," she said. It wasn't Fitch's beat, but he agreed to check it out. He figured there must have been an office inside the building, and the place was completely locked up, he said. "We had the dispatcher try to call back, but there was no answer." Fitch, now the county's police chief, still wonders. "It's a mystery to this day," he said. So that from a mausoleum, it's like, wow. What's he doing? Ordering pizza? It's just, I don't know. That just really rocks my brain. It's like, I don't know. Really incredible. All right. This one is about 3 years ago. St. Louis officer Joe Calabro responded to a Soulard home for a call about an open door and a burglar alarm sounding. The old Victorian dwelling was dark. Its owner was out of town. Calabro and another officer walked past the kitchen to a nearby room that had only one way in or out, and they were startled when its door slammed behind them. Was it wind? Some kind of pressure change? Well, they continued on a search and found nothing amiss except the open door. But when they returned past the kitchen, the faucets were running. They were the kind of handles you have to pull up, he recalled. It not only gave us the chills, but we had to figure out, is this coincidence or what was the case? Well, they never found an explanation, except perhaps one. It was ghosts. Yeah, really powerful. Pretty strange stuff, ladies and gentlemen. What do you think? Do you think spirits can call? Can they make phone calls? Can they do things like that? I'm always curious what you guys think, because of course we talk about so many different phenomena. We talk about so many possibilities. And, again, I don't pretend to know. I can't possibly know what they are capable of and what they're not. And then, I wonder about different kind of spiritual beings. Like, is there are, in my opinion, many different kinds of beings that we call spiritual beings, some of which used to be people, but others were never people. And so what is the difference there? So we experience all of them as these ghostly like beings, but what about the ones that were never human, or what are they capable of? Are they capable of more or less than the ones that were human? And what does that all mean? And I don't know. I just think that the reality is so incredibly large and dynamic that we just can't know. Next, we're going to get into some stories about some Ouija board experiences. Now, I always throw this caveat out because I think it's important. I think, a lot of people hear the term Ouija board and they're just like, no, 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 that's evil. That's evil. And I don't believe that Ouija boards in and of themselves, by the virtue of them being, like on the wall, a cardboard board with a bunch of letters and numbers printed on it and a little piece of plastic. I don't think that by virtue of them being created to look like that makes them evil. I don't think that's, that's the case. I think that things can go sideways by using them if you don't know what you're doing, but I don't think that in and of themselves that they are inherently evil or you are prone to only get something dark. I mean, it's possible that we know that spirits can make phone calls, so why can't they talk on a Ouija board? And I think that they can, but I do have problems with Ouija boards in that I don't think they should be used by children ever. I don't think that children are capable on an emotional level of really understanding what they're doing and what they're getting involved with, and what are the dangers. And I think letting children play with Ouija boards is incredibly, I don't know if it's incredibly dangerous, but it's just, I don't know. It's just so many things could go wrong. You don't want to get your kid an attachment or subject to possession or something worse. I mean, you don't want to do that to your kids. So I don't think they should be used by children. Thanks, Bam. I see Bam says, nice story. I appreciate that. But I think that they can be used responsibly. I think that most of the time people using them won't experience anything really paranormal. I think that a lot of times it's just there's not a connection, but sometimes there is. And you have to be prepared for that. And you also have to be prepared to try to filter what kind of connection you're bringing in. Now, I think it's incredibly important to set the scene that you're going to use something like this in. You have to prepare the place where you're going to make this contact, because any ritual should be done with reverence and with regard to honor what you're trying to do. It should be done in a manner that should block out negative spirits or negative influences. And I think that all of those things are possible. And if you can do those things, then I believe you can use that and maybe have some really incredible experiences. But I think that the problem is that most people don't know how to do those things, and that's where it goes sideways. Now, the danger of a Ouija board is the fact that you're a blind channel. You're creating yourself as a blind channel, or your group of people become a blind channel, and I think that that's dangerous. That you're saying, hey, if anybody here want to talk to us, well, what does that mean? Anything? Is anyone? So I think you got to be really careful about that kind of stuff. But again, I'm not trying to either glamorize nor to promote the use of any of these things. I think that always, whenever you're dealing with spiritual stuff or spirits, you should always be respectful and also be very careful, because, at the least case, many of these were once people, and as such, they deserve respect. And they're not there to perform and to do tricks for you. And I think that causes consternation with some spirits, is the fact that people, expect them to perform. And that must be really dehumanizing. But in the worst case, there's something around you don't want to be messing with anyway. So just my 2 cents. But we're going to, there you go. Thanks, Bam. Yeah, I'm taking calls for sure. Bam, the phone lines are open. I may not always see it, but I'm doing my best. I got a lot of screens to watch and a lot of things going on here when I'm solo, but I'll keep an eye on it. If you want to call in, I'd love to hear from you. But we are about 2 minutes away from the break, so we'll get into these Ouija board stories on the other side in the beginning of hour number 2, and we'll discuss some of this now. I just want to say, if you're not at all familiar with the fact that the Paranormal Portal is also a podcast, please be sure to check it out. You can find our podcast on Pandora, Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, and it's an audio-only format, and you can download them right to your phone or whatever, your tablet, and listen to them at your leisure. You don't have to have a continuous internet connection, but it's out there, and we'd really appreciate your support. If you like the podcast, please go on iTunes, leave us a good review, because that will help other people become introduced to the Paranormal Portal podcast, and that's always a good thing. So also following the Paranormal Portal tonight, be sure to stick around, because Paisley Wild will be coming up next with her Spaces Between show, which is following us right here on TFR Live. And you can also find her show if you want to check out the streaming of it. She streams on her YouTube channel, and that is youtube.com/spacesbetween, or the Spaces Between. So she will be coming up next. So there's all kinds of amazing stuff going on here on Friday nights on TFR Live. If you like the shows you're hearing on TFR Live, be sure to support the network. And it goes a long way to help all of us. So anyway, there's the bell. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to our hour break here. We'll be right back on the other side with more of the Paranormal Portal and more of me. So, what's not to love?
Play their games. Everybody loves to place their bets. They don't understand the price I paid. They don't care to comprehend. Trace their lines upon my body, flipping scars across my heart. Raging anger boils inside me, and their lies keep falling apart.
attracted to the one thing about her that is different from themselves. Her life force. It is very strong. It gives off its own illumination. It is a light that implies life and memory of love and home and earthly pleasures. Something they desperately desire, but can't have anymore. Right now, she's the closest thing to that.
Poltergeists are usually associated with an individual. Hauntings seem to be connected with an area. A house, usually.
Poltergeist disturbances are fairly short duration, perhaps a couple of months. Hauntings can go on for years.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Hour number 2 is now upon us here on the Paranormal Portal. I hope you guys are doing great. Thanks for being here and being a part of it. Lots of lovely folks joining us here. I did just get an email. I'm not sure I can open it though. It came in a weird email format or a weird document format. So I'm gonna try though. Oh yeah, I can actually. All right. Let's read this. Okay. All right. This is from a listener, and it says, let me move this over just a little bit. Okay. Nice big font too. I love it. It did open good. I'm so pleased. This is kind of long, ladies and gentlemen, but it should be a good one here. So let's get into this. I've been watching your shows and lurking for several weeks. I found you on Bigfoot Odyssey and have been watching ever since. Oh, that's cool. Very cool. I've seen several ghosts and have had my share of paranormal experiences since I was 17 years old, but it wasn't until many years later that I took an actual interest in the paranormal. Well, I was raised a Christian, and I went to both Christian and Lutheran schools growing up, so this was a rather taboo subject. It still is with most of my family and friends, who automatically think that everything related to the paranormal is demonic. I've been ghost hunting for about 15 years along with my sister, and we've witnessed many paranormal and unexplained things over the years. I, of course, can't go into all of them, but thought I'd share a few of the stories that led to our becoming ghost hunters. Yeah, that's cool. We do a night job cleaning a building in our local for our local college board. Many evenings we'd go in and still find people working, and we soon learned it was kind of a pain in our behinds as it would take us longer to work around them. So we started moving the time that we went in to later to avoid them, and sometimes not going in until as late as midnight. Excuse me. Up to this time, we've had many questionable experiences, but couldn't be positive about any of it. So the building was really quite large, 3 floors and a basement, so we could always shrug it off as being one of the stragglers working late, and we just figured we have yet to cross paths with them. To make the work go faster, we'd assign ourselves specific jobs. This meant that most of the time we worked separately at different ends of the building or on different floors altogether. One of the first things we started noticing was that the elevator would go up and down by itself. When working on separate floors, if we wanted to talk to each other about something, we'd listen for the elevator so we could meet up and talk. Many times one of us would hear the elevator and go wait in the hallway for it to arrive, only to find it empty when the doors finally opened. We shrugged this off at first, thinking to ourselves, well, she must have forgotten something and got back off the elevator, but then it started happening all the time, even when we'd be working in an area side by side. Still, we made excuses like maybe one of the stragglers came back for something, etc., etc. It didn't explain why they pushed every button on the elevator so it would stop at every floor, but it was better than admitting it was anything else, creeping ourselves out any further. We finally got wise and started checking the building first thing, and to make sure no one was there. And it wasn't fun to think that we were alone and all of a sudden have someone come up on us, scaring us, so causing either screaming or profanities to ensue. So checking the building at the beginning of the night saved us some embarrassment. Once we started going in so late and knowing positively that we were alone in the building, there wasn't as much second guessing ourselves. There was no longer any doubt in our minds that the building was indeed haunted. Here are some examples as to how we came to that conclusion. We had a 50-pound garbage cart on wheels, and we pushed through the building as we worked, collecting garbage from the cubicles, and attached to the cart was a thing that held all of our cleaning supplies, rags, sprays, etc. Occasionally, one of the cleaning supplies would go flying off the cart and onto the floor, sometimes with the contents dumping all over a floor that had just been mopped. Oh, that's brutal. We got to where every night we'd make sure all the lids were screwed on tightly after each use, but it didn't make any difference. Sometimes the spray bottle lids would still be dangling on the cart while the bottle laying empty on the ground. There were other times when the entire cart full of garbage would be turned over on the carpeting after we just finished vacuuming. Oh, what a jerk experience. Sometimes I would go to move it, and it would just stop as if it were stuck. And then all of a sudden, it would give and go flying over with a thud. Our mop bucket was also turned over several times, dumping dirty water all over the freshly scrubbed floors. Most of these types of incidents happened just as we were finishing for the night and getting ready to put everything away. It was really frustrating. We tried coming up with explanations for it, and we tried recreating both the garbage cart and the mop bucket being turned over, but to no avail. There eventually was so much going on in that building, we finally gave up trying to recreate or explain away the incidents. One night I was upstairs cleaning the kitchen, and I could hear who I thought was Jody hysterically laughing in the conference room down the hall. So I walked down the long hall to see what she was laughing about. As I reached the conference room doorway, I saw Jody entering from the elevator hallway at the other end of the room. At the same time, we asked each other, "What are you laughing about?" But to our surprise, it was neither of us. At the time, it was one of our creepiest encounters in that building. Most of the other incidents just really pissed us off. I don't blame you. That's horrible. On many occasions, I'd hear a woman singing. I couldn't make out the words, but it sounded like something you heard being sung inside of a cathedral or maybe an opera house. There were several spots in that building that neither of us really liked working alone. One of them was a large locked office that contained smaller offices running down either side of the room, and sometimes we would go in here talking in one of those offices. So out of courtesy, we would save that room until last. The minute we'd near the door, the talking would abruptly stop, and the room would be empty. On one occasion in the same room, I had just finished cleaning and went out and locked the door to go find Jody, and as we went to leave, I noticed that I must have left the light on, so I went back in to shut it off. And as I passed the little kitchenette on my way back out, I noticed the little refrigerator door was hanging open about 7 inches, and there was a can of cold Diet Coke laying on the ground in front of it. The kitchenette was the last room I'd cleaned before locking up, and it was only a few short moments before. It was not like that when I cleaned it, or I'd have noticed the fridge door open or tripped over the can of soda. The walking space in that tiny room was only about 3 feet wide by 4 feet long. Another incident happened in this room that I would say ranked right up there with some of the scariest and strange experiences I've ever had. I was walking through the room pushing the garbage cart, and all of a sudden my right leg dipped down into what felt like a hole. At the same time, I could feel like a very fast breeze swirling around my leg from the calf down where it dipped into this hole. I panicked and quickly pulled my foot back up and looked down thinking I'd just put my foot through a hole in the floor and I was about to go crashing through the floor below, but there was no hole. It was a rather terrifying experience. I never wanted to go back into that room again. Unfortunately, I really didn't have a choice. I did, however, never walk within 10 feet of that spot again. This is one of those stories that if told to me by someone else, I would have a hard time believing it. On the same floor, there was another large office that contained probably 40 or so cubicles. The cubicle walls were about 5 feet tall, and every so often you'd see just the very top of a head bobbing along between the cubicles, and when you'd come to the cubicle where they should have been, it would be empty. We constantly heard lots of chatter throughout the building as we worked, but of course, when we'd look, no one would be there, and we never really expected to find anyone either. At least we hope not, since most nights we worked between 8 p.m. and 3 a.m., and if someone were there at that time, it would most likely be because they had broken into the building. We always carried pepper spray just in case, but the only time it was sprayed was during a very stupid and painful accident. After working in this building for several months, Jody asked her mom and our sister if they'd ever experienced anything odd in that building, and they had worked there for 3 years prior to us. They both had experiences there as well, and I can only remember a couple of the incidents that they mentioned. But they also said the elevator would go up and down by itself, and my stepmom said every time she went to go down the stairs, it felt like someone would push her. Thankfully, I only had that experience on one occasion. This is just a handful of examples of the paranormal activity that occurred in that building, and I never actually got to what I had initially intended on writing about, but once I started thinking back, the memories just kept coming. This is so long already, but I'll save that account for another time. Before I sign off, I'd just like to let you know how much I enjoy and appreciate your show. You don't put down or judge anyone's paranormal accounts, even if they may seem a little out there. You also don't try to vilify every ghost encounter or label everything demonic, as many in the paranormal field do. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm humbled, of course, and I'm glad you like the show. I really appreciate that. Very cool. So that's a great series of events. It must have been horrifying, but it's kind of funny because as they worked around this, it just became part of the job, I suppose. You know, you just kind of expect things to be weird and go sideways a little bit. But I think the creepiest one, I think, is the leg going into what felt like a hole when it was really only a solid floor. That to me is an incredible experience. And I think, I don't know, I've heard stories of like abductees from, UFO encounters when they're being abducted, going through walls, going through windows. And that seems so hard to understand, but could it just be a matter of phase? And could spirits actually be able to change the phase of a person too? I don't know. It seems, I don't doubt the sincerity of anything that she wrote. I'm sure that what she's telling us is what they experienced, and that is incredible. But my hat's off to you. You guys worked in that environment for a long time, and you got to be a brave soul. You got to be a brave soul, and I can understand the desire to turn towards paranormal investigating after that, because you'd kind of seen so much in that one experience of working. So, through a matter of time, but just all of that varied activity. It sounds like an incredibly busy place. I wonder if there's a portal or something going on there, because some activity is understandable, but wow, that's a lot of activity. And it's a lot of varied activity. But, wow. But thank you so much for sending that in. Thank you for sharing that with us here on the show. This is exactly the kind of stuff I love. I love when you guys, reach out and bring your experiences to the show, because, you guys have seen it firsthand as well. I could sit and talk about my experiences, but it's just my experiences. And I've covered my experiences many times throughout the course of doing this show. I'm not all of them, but a large number of them. And it's great to hear yours. It's great to hear, I've never heard of somebody putting their foot through a solid floor before. But we hear about things like apports. We've heard many stories of people dropping something on the floor, hearing it drop, hearing it land right at their feet, looking down, and it's gone. Now that's a solid object that's been removed. And after long hunts, looking under every nook and cranny, crevice, whatever, are unable to find, and they can be sometimes significant objects. Like, I can't remember the one I'm trying to think of. I think it was a flashlight. They dropped the flashlight, it hit the floor and rolled just a little bit. They could hear that. And then they looked down to reach down and grab it, and it wasn't there. They looked everywhere, could not find this flashlight. Now, that's a pretty significant solid object that disappeared. So, could a person be disappeared? Well, maybe so. I mean, the memory of the cold air going around the leg, is that the sensation of what that feels like to be brought out of phase? I don't know. I'm using the term out of phase because I don't know how else you get a solid object through another solid object unless you can make that object, one of the objects, out of phase to the other. So it's not actually existing in the same vibrational reality, but it's been shifted to another vibrational reality. Or is the floor being phased and the foot would go right through it? And what if the foot went down and then it stopped and then your foot's stuck in a floor? I mean, I don't know. That's the first thing I thought about, is like, good job pulling your foot up. Could you imagine if it stopped and then you were like, you'd lose a foot? Very strange. Very cool stories, though. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for sharing, and I will look forward to having more discussions with you, and hopefully you'll be a guest on the podcast, because this is exactly the stuff that all of our listeners like to hear, not just YouTube. Our podcast listeners are really enjoying the varied guests that we've had on, sharing their experiences. And I get lots of email to that effect, like, hey, those stories were great. Wow, that experience was incredible. And it's really, really cool. But I can't take a whole lot of credit for it because they're your guys' stories. So, but keep them coming. Absolutely. Again, amazing stories. Okay, so, but that was that. So I was going to get into some of the Ouija stories now. Let me get to that article, see if I can find it now in my tab forest. Oh, yeah, here we go. Okay, I found it. Let me move that back over there. Here we go. So these are Ouija stories. And again, I can't vouch for any of the authenticity of any of these. These are just found accounts. So we'll take them at face value, I guess. They're represented at least as true stories. So, the first one is, we were hanging out in a friend's dorm room and busted out the Ouija board. There were a few of us who had used them before and a few who hadn't that were really quite skeptical. It was about 11 p.m. that night, and the communication with the board was really going quite well. Gary, one of the skeptics, kept calling BS to the whole thing, and we convinced him to sit on the floor with us and give it a shot. His first question, is this for real or just a bunch of BS? The planchette zipped to no. Fine, he says, still not believing. Prove it. No sooner had he finished that statement than the lights in the room flickered and the building fire alarm went off. Well, this freaked us all out, and we left the room to follow fire procedures. And after about 20 minutes, campus safety said it was a false alarm and let us go back into our dorms. And when we arrived back up at Gary's room, the Ouija board was gone. No one took it with us, and the room was left locked. Huh. There you go. That's a D-port right there. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for before I said upports, but it's D-ports. D-port is when things are taken away. Upports are when they appear. Here's another one that says, to start mine, I have to tell my mom's story first. Let me look at the time here, make sure we got time. Yeah, I got 6 minutes. We should be good. Oops, there we are. The one and only time she played with a Ouija board as a kid was enough to last a while. She was with a few of her friends, and all of them were in their late teens, and they got their hands on a Ouija board. And they set it up in the basement and started asking the standard run-of-the-mill questions. Is somebody there? Yes. Are you alone? Yes. Do we know you? Yes. And then asked to spell its name. Devi. They didn't let it finish and they all ran upstairs. Oh, yeah. They didn't get, okay. Fast forward almost 20 years. My mom and I, a few Halloweens ago, decided we'd give ourselves a spook and made our own Ouija board out of paper and a glass. And we started to ask the same standard questions. Is someone there? Yes. Are you alone? Yes. Do we know you? No. Well, that piqued my interest, and I then asked the one question that I probably shouldn't have. Are you human? No. We packed up everything up and shut it down awfully quick. I did the best cleansing I knew of, and for a few weeks we had a weird experiences in our apartment. So we called a medicine man to cleanse the entire apartment. Now here's the thing. I know that some people say, well, it wasn't a real Ouija board. We just made our own. In many ritualistic practices, if you want to make something powerful, you make it yourself. So in other words, if you want to craft some kind of a wand or magical device, you make it yourself. And the virtue of that is that it is created by your hands, tuned with your energy, and made into being through you. So if you buy something from a store, it's really not connected to anything. It's not directly connected to you other than through purchase. But when you craft your own Ouija board, you're actually creating something that is meant to resonate with your energy. So oftentimes these crafted boards are way more active and potent than the store-bought ones because you are making it, molding it, and crafting it with intention. And that intention is woven into it in an energetic pattern, so to speak. And so the homemade boards are not like, oh, well, it's just kind of a half attempt. No, you've actually made something that's incredibly potent and maybe significant. So crafted things are just by virtue of you making it going to be more profoundly active than a store-bought thing. So just my 2 cents, but yeah, you got to be just so everybody knows. Part of the practices in many ritualistic practices is to, if you acquire something through purchase, is to spend time attuning it to yourself before you can use it in whatever manner you choose. So, yeah, crafting something is automatically going to be incredibly potent. So the next one is I visited an alleged haunted house with one of my teachers and a few friends. We spent the night there sometime around 4-ish. We talked to one of the 3 girls who had died of cholera in the 1800s. When we communicated with her, we asked her to show herself, and all she responded with was 11:35. Flash forward to 11:35, and everyone is together and is really anxious. 11:35 comes, nothing happens. We all relax. But at 11:40, my teacher claimed she saw a girl in the window. Then the lights flickered on and off once. Then constant, loud, scary knocking on the steps next to us. It was really very frightening. After it seemed to be over, we pulled out the Ouija board, and the girl confirmed that it was her. The next morning, we find notes saying, "Come back soon," scattered across the house, written on torn pieces of paper from a notepad that my teacher brought. Handwritten notes. I don't know. That's a different phenomenon. Is it possible? Sure. There's many old practices in investigating to, like, put down little chalkboards with chalk and let spirits, allegedly write things on the little blackboards or pens and paper. It's I don't know. I don't know how valid it is. I know people don't still do it generally. Sometimes people go old school in their investigating and will pull out things like that, but I don't know. It seems to me that it's a practice that would be pretty easy to fake. And so it's probably, not really regarded as a real valid investigative procedure because anybody can write not like themselves, you know. So can you really trust it if some shows up and you weren't watching it the whole time? No, not really. So I guess it's not really utilized anymore, but let me look at the time because we got to be getting close. We are very close, as a matter of fact. It's the last break coming up, ladies and gentlemen. Just a few minutes away, but just again, if you're listening on TFR, iHeart, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live, stick around for Paisley Wild coming up after the Paranormal Portal. And she'll be doing her show, which is called The Spaces Between. It's a great show. She's a wonderful friend of mine and Don's. And she does a great job. So definitely tune in and check it out. And we will be right back in just a couple minutes, ladies and gentlemen, for more of the Paranormal Portal. Don't go away. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The last half hour of our journey tonight. It is flying by as usual. I don't I don't know what the hell happens. It's like I turn on the show and the next thing I know, it's like almost time to go. I'm not sure how that happens, but it's definitely a phenomena that I'll never get used to. Not sure why the time goes so fast. I guess because I love what I'm doing. When you love what you're doing, you never work a day in your life, huh? That's what they tell me anyway, so that must be it. But welcome to the show, last half hour, but we have been on a hell of a journey so far. Our very own Kev Baker is in the chat room right now on YouTube. And remember to tune in tomorrow night because he will be the guest of honor on the show with Don and I, and it'll be a lot of fun because we're going to turn the mics on Mr. Kev Baker, and he won't be the interviewer. He'll be the interviewee. Now, we'll get into a great discussion about the paranormal and compare notes and just have a good time. That's a show that I'm really looking forward to. I haven't had him on before, so finally talked him into it. But that'll be tomorrow night right here on the Paranormal Portal, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Whatever that means to the time zone you're in, you'll have to sort that out, but that'll be tomorrow night. Again, Paisley Wild will be following us here after the show. So if you want to hear her journey into the paganistic practices and esoteric understandings, she's a great person, does a great job, and has a wealth of information and a lot of wonderful guests. I forget. I know they got some past life regression stuff coming up on tonight's show, I believe. I talked with her earlier this week, and she was talking about that. She's got some guests on. It should be great. So tune in and check it out, and I'm sure you'll be glad you did. But we are going through some paranormal fun tonight, discussing right now some Ouija board stories that people have experienced. And I was going to say something. I was like on the break, I was like, oh, I got to remember to say this, but I can't remember what it is I was going to say, so I'll just keep talking. And yeah, exactly, Brett. Tomorrow night, he's in the hot seat. That's right. We're going to have him on. We'll have to, Kev, we still got to do that Friday marathon thing that we were talking about. That would be a lot of fun. I'd love to do that and get all of us together and just mix it up for, I guess it'd be 5 hours. You do 3 on Freaky Friday and I do 2. So that's 5 full hours. That would be a hell of a run. You think we could pull it off? If you guys would like to hear that go on, then let us know. Because it's something that we've discussed of doing just a Friday run combination between Freaky Friday and the Paranormal Portal. I think that would be great. It would be really good. Let's get it set up for February. All right. I'm game, brother. Just let me know when. I'd be happy to do it. That'd be a lot of fun. Okay. Let's get back into the Ouija board stories, ladies and gentlemen. This one is kind of odd. I don't know. It says, when I was little, my mom took out a Ouija board and asked my brother and I if we'd like to play with it. Jeez. When I was little, Mom pulled out a Ouija board. Yeah. There you go. That spells family fun right there, ladies and gentlemen. She is generally atheist as well, but she has some odd tendencies. It's difficult to tell if she legitimately believes in some of the things that she says or if she's just messing with us, because she has pretended to believe a lot of odd stuff in the past just to get a rise out of us. Well, we said yes, setting up the Ouija board in the center of the kitchen table. And it started out pretty funny. Someone was obviously moving the glass thing, making words like poop and stuff like that. Did I mention we were young enough for that to be hilarious? Yeah. But then my mom said, let's get serious and try to contact someone. Well, here's where it gets weird. A friend of hers had recently gone missing, and he'd been missing for about a month or so. Nobody knew where he was. And when we asked who it was we're talking to, his name was spelled out. Let's just say it was George, since I genuinely don't remember. And when we asked George if he was my mom's friend, he said yes. My mom got visibly upset and asked where he was. Said in a lake was spelt out. It was extremely upsetting, and we stopped immediately. Mom tried to be lighthearted about it, and since I was young, I believed it was no big deal as well, following her lead. About 2 weeks later, they found George's body. He had been hit by some car or train or something on some bridge, and his body fell into a nearby lake. Though it was more like a very large pond, it was reasonably remote place, so nobody found it for quite a while. Wow. There you go. Is that credibility? Is that just coincidence? I don't know. So is it possible that people using the Ouija board are actually just getting in touch with their own subconscious? And she was psychically picking up that he was in a lake. I don't know. It's all possible, ladies and gentlemen. I don't pretend to know the mechanics of these things, but I do believe that spirits can communicate with us. So if that's the case, then I think that the mechanics of the Ouija board are not very much different than, other kinds of channeling. I mean, is it a psychic event, or is it actually a spirit taking control of a piece of plastic? I believe personally that the Ouija board mechanics are more of a channeling of the spirit energy through you and in you. And that is also why I believe that they can be incredibly dangerous, is because you're throwing out this invitation to anything to come through you and interact with the board. And I think that that's the risk. That's why it's, not a great idea, I think. But, everybody has their ideas. This one is in high school. A couple of friends, my friend's mom and myself, were talking about a local building being haunted, soil conditioners that sell dirt, bark, and other landscaping goods, rumored to be the location of a murder years before. The mom worked there, so we decided to break out the board and give it a shot. I never used one before, so I was skeptical from the jump. The place is essentially a large warehouse with tall metal racks. Think about like Costco or Home Depot, stacked with bags of dirt, manure, bark, and other things like large ceramic flower pots. And the board was glow in the dark, so we kept all the lights off. And once we got it going, it started moving around. And I was really freaking out already. We asked if something was there, and to let us know, there was a large, loud bang that seemed to come from the rafters on the other side of the warehouse. Every question that followed was met with similar bang from a various location in the warehouse, sometimes close, sometimes far. The last question asked was if it meant us harm, and the thing already on the no answer did not move. The question was repeated and immediately followed by the closest noise seemed right on top of us, so we decided to get the hell out of there. As we were rushing out, we flipped on our flashlights and saw one or two large pots fall from the racks, and we heard what we would later find to be 40-pound bags of bark dropping to the ground. And there was also a slow, low grinding noise that, when my friends returned the next day, was a sledgehammer that had been dragged through the dirt-covered cement floor, standing straight up in the air with drag marks but no footprints anywhere near it. I pretty much believe in ghosts now and slept with the lights on for about a week. Yeah, that's the other part, is that the other part of this is that you do have to clear yourself after these kind of events. I mean, you don't just move the plastic over, goodbye, and then you're done. It's like paranormal investigators. If they're doing it right, they should be starting with some kind of ceremony, whether it's a prayer for protection or some similar ceremony that you begin with. And when you end, you should end with, some kind of closing ceremony and, or a prayer to make sure that everything there stays there and does not follow you home. It's not allowed to follow you home. Well, I don't think it should be any different for the Ouija board, right? Because if there's indeed a spiritual presence, you don't want it following you home. But anyway, just my 2 cents. Again, I don't mean to, preach, but this is just, I think it's important stuff because, spirits, I think, can get lonely, and sometimes Sticking around people is much more preferable to sitting in a warehouse watching the rafters. So here's the next one. A few years ago, my friends, a group of girls, decided to try this out with a group of guys. We were in the 12th grade at the time, and my group of girls had messed around with it before to varying degrees of success. And well, this time it was my hands on the planchette with my other girlfriend. And this thing was moving crazy fast, faster than I'd ever seen. And it seemed to be getting quite agitated by the group of guys we were with who were joking around and not taking it too seriously. It essentially told them to shut up and stop talking. I told the guys, seriously, please stop being rude. I'm kind of freaked out. Anyway, because I was getting nervous, one of the guys took over. He was a bit more serious about it. Almost immediately, the thing spelled out, "Don't open the door." Well, we were all in the basement and there was only one door, so we kind of looked over at it nervously because I was getting anxious. I took the blanket and kind of hid my face, and immediately it spelled out, "Don't hide from me." Everyone was freaked out. The guy who had his hands on the planchette literally started to cry. He wanted to take his hands off, but we have this rule that you don't take your hands off until you get it to say goodbye. Everyone wanted to stop, but it took about 10 minutes of asking dumb questions until the thing finally slid to goodbye. Some of the guys speculated afterwards that it meant don't open the metaphorical door of the spiritual world. The reason being is we told them to never ask for a sign or else it kind of lets the spirit roam free outside of the board. I don't know if that's well, anyway. Before that guy took over, they kept asking for a sign, and only for me to cut them off mid-sentence and tell them to knock it off. So this actually made some sense. Looking back on it, I'm very, very much quite atheist, so not entirely sure what to make of the situation, but I won't touch that thing ever again, and that's how much of an impact it left on me. Well, there you go. Huh. All right, so the next one, of course, is my cousin, her friend, and I had been dicking around with the board for a few days. Nothing really happening, and we mostly used it to roll joints on by the end. She stretched out and rested the phone on the Ouija board that was on the coffee table, and the moment the phone touched it, it started to vibrate. A red light went on, and what sounded like tons of people screaming and talking in tongues came over the phone. That's weird. It was as if it were on speaker, and it filled the room. We were terrified, and it lasted a few moments, and then the phone shut off. We got so freaked out, we threw the board in the garbage and put it on the curb. The phone doesn't even have a red light. Yeah, there you go. There you go. I'm just reading the stories, Sarah. I don't write them. I'm just reading them. I say the word dick every once in a while, people being a dick, but I don't think that that's too horrible. But that's my own criteria. I'm not cussing as far as I know. All right, so the next one is one of my best experiences involved talking with a spirit of air, which happened back when I believed only in the mental aspect of magic. And I thought that the spirits I was talking to were just parts of my psyche. To test this, I asked the spirit to show me some kind of sign of its essence, which I did not expect to manifest. And when I asked this, a huge eagle, birds being part of the air spirit's domain, landed right outside my window. It stared at me, like really stared into my eyes, looked down at the board, and then flew away. Maybe it was coincidence, but I closed down the communication, did a rose cross banishing ritual, and noped the hell away from the magic for a good while. Good times. That's pretty profound, though. What are the odds that an eagle's going to land outside your window and look at the board? Look at you and then look at the board. I guess that old adage is true. Be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you ask for. This one is, my two friends and I tried a Ouija board about 15 years ago in front of a bunch of people. We tried to contact my deceased grandfather, and it didn't work. The pointer started to move and said it was one of my friend's fathers, the one girl that was doing the board with us, who was deceased before any of us met her. She let go of the pointer, so it was just my friend and I manning the board, and to verify, we asked his middle name. Got it. Asked for his birthday. Got the month, day, and year correct. To this day, when I see my one friend, I asked him how he knew all that information about the father, and to this day he says he didn't know the information as he never met the deceased father, and it wasn't staged. And I know I didn't know the information. We asked what the father wanted to say, and he just spelled out love and then the infinity motion over and over. We called it quits when the girl started crying profusely, and she threw the board away. A week later, I saw my grandfather's face in a dream. He was shaky from the stroke he had before he died, as he was in my last memories of him, and I just looked at him. He slowly raised his head, and we made eye contact, and I said, "I tried to contact you." He stopped shaking, leveled his face, leaned forward, and said, "I know. We let the other guy go." And then I woke up. Wow. Sounds really profound. Here's another one. Played with a Ouija board several times many years ago. Got mainly dark and scary replies with names we didn't know. One claimed to be my uncle, though, and we started to do it all the time, every day with a homemade board. A few weeks later, I was in a club, saw a friend I hadn't seen for maybe 2 years from across the room, and he literally came running over to me with a strange look on his face. He said, "I can't believe it's you. I have something strange to tell you, but you have to listen to me." Before I could answer him, he went on. "I went to see a reader, and she told me that she had a message for a friend of mine, a woman, and said your name. She told me to tell you to stop playing with the Ouija board because you're going to get burnt. Does that make sense to you?" I was speechless and really scared. I didn't know if that was for real or else how it could have happened, but I'm sure as hell never going to touch one again. Here's a short one. Me and a close friend have used the Ouija board a handful of times over the last few years, and every time we've played and asked who we were speaking to, it tells us Allison. Our good friend Allison committed suicide 8 years ago. Most of the questions we asked her answered with her spelling out mom. Most of the time the vibe feels good and nothing weird happens. One night we were playing and all of a sudden the mood switched. The vibe in the room was eerie and something didn't feel right. We both sensed it, and I asked if Allison was still with us, and it said no. We decided to end the session when the planchette started moving really fast around the whole board. If our fingers hadn't been planted firmly, it would have flew right off the board. We said our closing saying and said goodbye to whoever the hell it was we let in, and we put it away, and the eerie, dark feeling in the room went away. Here's another one. When I was in my first year of university, we started playing with a homemade Ouija, and there were like 5 of us, and we contacted some spirit whose name I'm glad to have forgotten. As we were talking to it, the doorbell rang, and one of my friends had to go as her dad was there to pick her up. We didn't close the session by saying goodbye to the spirit, as we had no clue, and just threw the paper away. Now the girl that had to leave early started acting strange and didn't hang with the rest of us as much. A few months later, she told us that she went to get a cleansing as she wasn't feeling like herself, and told us that the moment she stepped in the door, the witch lady that was going to cleanse her totally freaked out and told her she had a spirit with her and used the very same name that we had seen on the Ouija board many months before. She told my friend that the spirit was following her as we didn't close the session and attempted to cleanse her without any success. She tried to commit suicide about 3 times after this. She dropped from the university and went to live somewhere else, so I've lost touch with her. Ooh, that's spooky stuff right there. That's some really creepy, spooky stuff. All right, so here's another one. I was about 12 or 13, spending the night at a friend's house, goofing around with the Ouija board, with him and his sister, and we were getting all sorts of gibberish plus words spelled out, just kind of scaring ourselves for fun, not really taking it very seriously. When we got the message, I can see you through the window. And then I can see you through his eyes, or something like that. And there was just a small window in the basement room where we were, and just the backyard and the woods past the driveway visible through that window. We asked it more questions, and it said, I'm under the car. So we somehow got up the nerve to go out with a flashlight and peer under the car, where we saw a huge black stray cat, which was hissing. We ran inside, freaking out, and at that exact same moment, the power failed and all the lights in the house went out. Just about actually pooped ourselves. A few minutes later, the power came back, and we sat up till dawn that night, scared, and never played with the board again. Here's another one. My limited experience of the Ouija board left me with one impression. It was possessed. I was 9 or 10 at the time. Yeah, definitely not the age to be doing this stuff. My neighborhood friends were a bit older, and each of us only had one finger on the planchette, but it moved with incredible ferocity. I don't recall it spelling out anything of importance before we all looked each other in horror and snatched our hands away. I do, however, have an interesting story via my uncle. He attended a Bible college in the early 1960s in Southern California. My uncle's friend was in his dorm room with 2 fellow classmates asking the Ouija board questions, receiving intriguing answers, and it was truly working. When his friend's roommate came home and walked through the door, the planchette stopped moving just like that. They kept asking, "Where did you go? Why did you stop communicating?" And it slowly spelled out, "Because of the blood on you." The roommate who had arrived home was a born-again Christian, whereas the others at the Ouija board were, shall we say, going through the motions. My uncle's friend was so struck by this experience that he also became a true believer. Since it's not my own experience, I can't vouch for it, but it always stayed with me. My uncle is a very, very serious man, and not one to tell tall tales. That's very powerful. I have a story related to a board game, though it's not the Ouija specifically. 2 years ago, I lived in this house that had a lot of strange goings on. Running up the stairs while no one was home, shadows that passed along our floor lights in the hallway. One day, my girlfriend was over mid-afternoon, and we were playing Monopoly. We were in a good hour or so into the game, and I roll a 2 and a 6. And I passed go on that roll as well, so she reached to her side and handed me the $200. She then states, "Roll again." I was a bit confused and said, "What for?" And then she looks at the dice and says, "Look, you rolled doubles, 2 6s. I did not touch the dice, and she did not touch the dice. Neither of our hands was in the vicinity of the dice, yet somehow the 2 changed into a 6. We both wondered what it would have spelled out if there were 3 dice involved. I wasn't pleased or fazed much since I lived there, and weird things happened all the time. She was definitely freaked out, and we never played Monopoly there again. It was darn Monopoly boards. If it's not Ouija, it's Monopoly, ladies and gentlemen. Crazy stories, though, huh? Wow, that's immense. Oh, I'm glad. Hey, Doc Kayak, good to see you, brother. I guess I missed him. He was in the TFR chat. Good to see you, though. I'm glad you stopped in if you listen to this later. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, again, make sure to stick around after tonight's show. Paisley Wild's coming up next. If you want to help support the portal, head over to our Teespring store, teespring.com/stores/paranormal-portal. And you can check out some of the gear we have available. We got some new things in development that we're working on now. It goes a long way into helping us to not only continue the show, but to expand the show in the avenues that we want to. So if you're capable of doing it, that's wonderful. But if you're not, that's fine too. the best way you can help us is by spreading the word about the Paranormal Portal. Let people know if you are involved in groups, if you're involved in any message boards or anything that have to do with the paranormal, let people know about the Paranormal Portal. And it'd be nice to keep this growing and expanding. We've got an amazing community of people surrounding the portal, and that's a fact that I'm absolutely honored with. So I really thank you all. Remember, tomorrow night, Don will be here with me, and we'll be welcoming Mr. Kev Baker to the show. And we'll get into all that woo coming up then. So I hope you guys will join us. It'll be Kev's maiden voyage through the portal. So it should be a great, great time. And we're really looking forward to it. So that's going to about wrap it up for us tonight, ladies and gentlemen. So I imagine the bell should have come on by now. But for some reason, I'm not hearing it. But anyway, Kev Baker tomorrow night here on the Paranormal Portal. Love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, help each other out, find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. See y'all. Good night, and we'll see you tomorrow.